There's a lot of misconceptions about the brain and intelligence. The brain is a very complex organ, and things like conscious perception and intelligence are really difficult to define, let alone measure. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's really difficult. Because of this complexity, it's hard to explain the brain without resorting to oversimplification, which runs the risk of being inaccurate and giving the wrong impression. I think this is how the myth that we use 10% of our brains got started. The reality is that we use all parts of our brain, just not all at once. And even if we were to estimate the percentage of our brain that's active at any given point in time, it's probably going to be more than 10%, especially when you consider all of the brain activity that's required just to maintain your posture and keep your heart beating and your lungs breathing, all of that basic basal reptile brain stuff. Intelligence is another aspect of the brain that people often misunderstand or mischaracterize. Some people mistakenly think that intelligence comes from certain regions of the brain, like a specific nucleus or a particular circuit, or that perhaps there's a specific gene or a set of genes that, when turned on, allow smart stuff to happen. These descriptions are, to put it simply, not accurate. Modern research has suggested that your intelligence is the product of the complex interactions of certain variables, like the connectivity of your neurons, the synaptic density, and the proportion of neurons that are not dedicated to motor functions. Now, the news that I want to tell you about today is a study on cognition that found evidence suggesting that intelligence is a whole brain phenomenon. There is no intelligence region whose activity correlates to intelligence. Instead, intelligence, or cognitive ability, is, to quote the paper, associated with global structural connectivity, with higher fractional anisotropy associated with higher IQ, unquote. Okay, so there was a couple of technical terms in there. So when they mention structural connectivity, they're talking about the number and the density of connections between the neurons, where more connections means more information can be distributed across a larger number of neurons. More neurons are involved in whatever sensory process or thought process is going on. When they mention fractional anisotropy, they're talking about a measure of the fiber tracts, or the neural highways carrying information in the brain. A higher fractional anisotropy suggests larger or stronger neural tracts, which implies a healthier, more robust neural physiology. Both these factors increase the capacity for cognitive processing of information, which we perceive as intelligence. In the study, they used diffusion tensor imaging to study variations in the neural circuitry of small regions across the brain of over 1,700 subjects from all over the world. Of these 1,700 subjects, 760 of them had schizophrenia, and 957 of them were neurophysiologically healthy. They found that the presence of schizophrenia had less of an influence on intelligence than the structure of the neural circuits themselves. It seems that intelligence is a result of efficient and effective neural pathways, or good engineering, in other words. Dr. Gary Donoghue is a psychology professor at the National University of Ireland, Galway, and he was a lead researcher on the project. He said, quote, "These results advance our knowledge in a number of ways. Firstly, we have demonstrated that the relationship between brain structure and intelligence not only involves gray matter, but also white matter, the brain wiring system. Secondly, it's not just one part of this wiring system that's important for intelligence, but rather the wiring system as a whole. And finally, the relationship between intelligence and the brain's wiring system is basically the same in patients with schizophrenia and healthy people," unquote. Dr. Donoghue also said, quote, "This suggests that cognitive function in patients is the same as the general population, at least as far as white matter is concerned," unquote. So this is really cool. It's a really amazing study that's showing that intelligence is based not just on connections between neurons, the gray matter, like we thought previously, but it also has to do with the connectivity and the efficiency of the neurophysiological architecture of the white matter as well. So all parts of the brain are involved in intelligence. I just think this is really cool stuff, because the more we learn about our intelligence and our perception and our consciousness, the more we understand how the biochemical wetware creates the human experience. And in my opinion, this is the foundational goal of all of neuroscience, to uncover the chemical and neurophysiological details underpinning the experience of the living human brain.